Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had 6 things I was going to ask, but I think Director Clapper answered 2 of them in a lot of detail. But I want to mention something else about Snowden, the Tida War, and then, of course, AFRICOM, and then one other question about Iran. First of all, I thought you covered it very well, Director Clapper, in terms of what Snowden has done. The disturbing thing is, and we hear from an awful lot of people, they treat him as if he's a hero, and I look at it more as a traitor. And I would like to get from each one of you that he has, probably you'd agree that he's perpetrated the single greatest compromise of classified information in American history. And then secondly, have each one of you respond that I believe that the vast majority of the 1.7 million documents that were stolen have nothing to do with the NSA or surveillance programs, and if disclosed or replaced in the hands of the adversaries, will undermine our ability to defend our homeland. Just something so that the people will understand that the vast majority of this stuff really has nothing to do with the rights that people are concerned about under the NSA.
Yes, sir. As I indicated in my oral statement, the revelations have gone way, way beyond the concerns about the so-called domestic surveillance programs. To quantify this, it's a very, very small portion of the totality of what he's looked at. And the 1.77 million is simply an assessment of what he looked at. We don't actually know what he actually took and what he's provided to his accomplices. But that's why I said in my statement that potentially this is by far the most damaging set of intelligence revelations in the nation's history.
Yeah, General Flynn, do you agree with that?
Yeah, yes, Senator, I absolutely agree. And the majority of what he took, without going into the details of the types of capabilities or components, have nothing to do with NSA.
Yeah. Back when AFRICOM was started, I was most interested in that, and it was good that we did it. However, setting it up so that they don't have control of their own assets comes back to haunt us, I feel, quite often. Put that chart up, if you would, over there. If you look and see how much is going on right now in northern Africa, and the fact that they are dependent upon EUCOM for their resources. And then I just got back from Africa, from the EUCOM headquarters and from that general area. And I just would kind of like to have you comment as to your concern. In Africa headquarters, I was briefed that only 12% of all the requests of ISR, that's intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, are being met due to the lack of resources. My concern has been that, and I'd like to have you give me your assessment as to the resources that are there, the assessments that have been made that only 12% of the concerns are being met or being addressed. And then, because my concern is that it's being budget-driven as opposed to risk-driven. What are your thoughts about AFRICOM right now and the resources they have? And, of course, you mentioned, General Flynn, in this time of the budget restraint. That's my concern, that this is all budget-driven. Comments on that?
Well, sir, I can comment on certainly the threat that we see evolving in Africa, and the map is quite suggestive of that. In both what's called the Sahel and then the Maghreb along the northern coast of Africa, we see a proliferation of either Al-Qaeda or Al-Qaeda wannabes or other terrorists who profess violence. And and of course there is kind of the perfect storm of conditions there with large ungoverned areas, porous borders, the place is awash in weapons, primarily from Libya, and you have either unwilling or incapable security services able to go after these people. For the most part, they don't pose a direct threat to the homeland now, but they certainly could in the future. As far as AFRICOM is concerned, I'll defer to General Flynn, but just to say it is clearly an economy of force operation. I think General Rodriguez has done a superb job in marshaling the resources he does have, particularly in monitoring the situation in South Sudan. One other point I'd mention, since the President of France is here, is that the French have capability in that part of the world from their history, and they have great access and have laid out a strategy in which they want to pursue terrorism. And of course, I think they would look to us, and I'm certainly going to try to do all we can to assist them, particularly with respect to intelligence. Mike?
Yeah, and first I would appreciate you asking the question. I mean, I think that map is very telling in terms of the threats that we face in AFRICOM, and I think for viewers, one of the things to point out where that number 8 is at the top there, which is on the coast of Algeria down to the Gulf of Nigeria, where the number 10 is, that distance is about the distance from New York to Los Angeles. So the scale of what we're talking about in AFRICOM and Africa as a continent is just huge. I think in terms of what AFRICOM is trying to do is they are working very hard to build African capacity where they can, basically partnering with the African nations to be able to build capacity bilaterally and then via coalitions. One of the capabilities that is a shortcoming, a major shortcoming, and we appreciate all of the help from Congress on this, is the need for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities. Not just the capabilities that fly, but also the human intelligence and other aspects of ISR. And then I think, as the Director just highlighted, the reliance on other partners, particularly European partners that do support many of these operations that are going on in Africa, that reliance is really critical for us.
Okay, and my time's about expired, but I just want, if I can get an answer from each one of you. I keep hearing these things that different people in the administration is talking about. Al-Qaeda is on the run, on the path to defeat. If you look at this chart up here, it depicts that the Al-Qaeda and its allies have a presence and are now operating, and it's to me, it's just the opposite of that. What, just yes or no, each one of you, is Al-Qaeda on the run and on the path to defeat?
No, it is morphing and franchising itself, not only here, but other areas of the world.
Mm-hmm.
They are not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Inhofe. Senator Reid?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you,